All right, and welcome to the Evolving Practice Podcast. I'm Dr. Bill Moss, and I'm with my co-host.
I am Dr. Sean Carey.
And we're excited to do a slightly different episode. One's going to revolve around what we would tell our younger selves. So looking at our healing journeys and our practice journeys and our lives in general, there's always these lessons that we start to gleam upon after we've gone a certain distance. And there's always wisdom in that understanding of, I wish I would have maybe done something different along the way. Advice that would have helped save us time, energy, money, pain, and promote more joy. And throughout the process of healing and growth, there's always this concept to, what advice would we give to ourselves in that moment that would keep us projecting forward? So, we're going to kind of look at this from many different ways, but really the underlying theme is like, what the heck would you tell your younger self?
Yeah, what a question to ask. And one of the fun things with this too is we can kind of check in about different parts in our life as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
yeah. What's the first thing that comes to mind for you? I mean, just like across, there's the gamut of like many topics, but it's like, if I asked you the question directly, like, what would you tell your younger self? Where does that take you to start?
well, that takes me to probably being around like 7. Like I'm thinking kind of like maybe like around that age. And the feedback I would give to my younger self at that time is to kind of stress the importance of like you're not really like everybody. Like don't try to fit in. I think a lot of my like early years were spent trying to like fit in and be like everybody else. And there are some parts of me that were just way, way different. And so as trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And a lot of my life, a lot of my early life, I just kind of struggled instead of like embracing the ways I was different. And it was more being difficult on myself instead of actually, not trying to ever fit in the first place. Like if I could go back in time, I wouldn't try to fit in that way.
Yeah. Because most of us go through that period of time where we actually do everything that we can to fit in. And it's like on people's deathbed, most of the time it's like people wish that they had spent more time being their true self. They were doing the things they love to do, fulfilling projects and serving people in ways that weren't about the money or the career or that sort of thing. It's funny you jumped all the way back to 7, where I was like not going there at all at the beginning, but it kind of took me there. So I guess that youngest version, the thing that comes up for me is this understanding of like, it's kind of going to be okay. Like this idea of you're going to be safe comes through. It's like I definitely at a young age didn't feel fully like safe to be myself. So when we're talking about like you're telling yourself, oh, you could be yourself, I would give the advice, especially growing up, like it's gonna be okay, like even though it's gonna hurt and you're gonna feel because I was such a feely sensitive type of kid. I didn't really understand that aspect of the self, of how different I was, but I've always been a very sensitive individual, and that sensitivity looks very it shows up differently in each decade, right? When you're a kid, you don't even know what you're picking up, right? You don't have this awareness, and we don't trust our awareness at that time. But for me, I remember feeling very scared and fearful and anxious, and my mom was pretty anxious. She still has an anxious demeanor. And I remember just feeling that way and not exactly sure why. I remember like studying religion and just being so scared and feeling like I needed to obey. So like, if we're going to start with lesson 1 for me, it would be like, you can feel safer. Like things are going to be okay. More of that like motherly energy of like, you're going to be all right, even though you're going to have some trials and tribulations.
That's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Really good advice.
Yeah. So my foundation would probably be around safety now that we're going there. So Like, you're going to start a podcast and it's going to hurt.
No, this has been fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's really really good advice, and it's going back to those super developmental years. Like we think so differently at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and you just like one things with the training we have within the mystery schools, we talk about know thyself is really kind of the key. It's the key thing for people.
Mm-hmm.
Like you need that first before anything else. And like when you're 7, you don't know yourself at all.
No, we're not even really tasked to at that point, right? But in some ways we express thyself much better.
Yeah.
Because we don't have as many layers, and we just kind of, I watch my daughter just pure emotion and just kind of response, and it's fun to just watch the energy unfold, right? My daughter's like almost 5.5, and she just kind of like expresses, and it's fun for me to just watch expression in live time, where it's not as calculated. Life isn't so calculated, and I feel like that's it's nice. It's like when we progress and then we look back, especially at that time. I'm kind of interested that you picked that time to go back. There's a lot of good learning and a lot of the true self that is coming through that then we damper through the other years, right? With our programming and with our expectations that others put on us. And we oftentimes lose touch with that essence of who we are at that age. And it's interesting to have such a ready example with my daughter to see like what I want to hope to cultivate for her, so she doesn't lose that essence, and like you said, it's like we want to preserve that. And a lot of times it does come from this idea of keeping someone safe. You know what I mean? Like kids should just kind of dream their way through the first couple years of life.
Yeah. And the parenting too, it's because like when I think of safety, like my mother really struggled with anxiety. So, there was a lot of like, oh, like, am I supposed to be anxious too? type of feeling when I was a child. And I think those things really matter for children in a big way.
Yeah. So that might have been even better advice, is you don't have to be as anxious as you're going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I struggled massively with anxiety, the early episodes we talked about that, but that was such an internal thing. I felt that finally, unfortunately bled over into a lot of physical symptomatology, from racing heart rate to even high blood pressure and dizziness and vertigo when I was like 22. And I only knew the physical world as being kind of my world at that point, not really looking deeper in this internal world and what was going on. And that was really difficult. And I knew where I got it from. And most of it came from not living in alignment to the authentic self of who I am. So, I could have saved myself. The best advice would be like, get some help for your anxiety early on. And, what I found, most of the work, the spiritual work, really helps people feel less of that anxiety, because we feel closer to the essence, and then we feel at home. And I feel like in the last interview with Founder Goodney that you did in Tokyo, you guys hinted upon that, like that essence, that when you are that close to it, you don't have the worry, you don't have the fear, and then you have the healing. And it's like you're just so close to the healing because you have this recognition of like, oh, I'm spirit, and the separation starts to dissolve. Which that I think this question helps dissolve some of that separation and get us closer to the essence of who we are.
Yeah, he communicated that in a really great way. He was the way like I heard him describe it was that like if you're in a state of balance, like if you're truly in balance, the healing's all done.
Yeah,
you don't you're all set. And I had never heard him say it that way before, and it's like, oh, okay, that was a really cool way to describe it. And it totally translates to this too, because then we put on that lens of like, okay, where was I out of balance throughout the different stages of my life and early life?
Yeah. How about from a practitioner perspective? We've both been in practice over a decade.
Yeah.
Serving people both chiropractically and energetically. With this question of like, what advice would you give to your younger self
Like in
regard?
practice.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we to go back, like let's say like 10 years plus in practice.
Yeah.
I would say that one thing that I would try to impart on myself back then is to take things less personally.
Mm.
So part of our work is we put ourselves out there, and sometimes we're rejected, but like people may not understand chiropractic. They may think may have had a bad experience, that type of thing. To
Mhm.
take that personally. Also,
Yeah.
to not take it personally, like to feel like a failure if there was a case that didn't get better.
Yeah.
That was really hard on me at the beginning, because we want every single person to get better under our care. And the
Mhm.
reality is that nobody has 100% success rate in terms of somebody's symptoms. People can have
Mhm.
some really complicated things going on, and sometimes there's something that they're living, a way that they're living, or something they're holding on to that's connected to that pain.
Yeah.
So those would be two things that I would say for myself. How about you?
Oh man. I mean, I think this could be an episode. I think there's a lot
Yeah.
of, I definitely I think I would have started with the foundation of, I think it's Tony Robbins who says it. It's like most people think they can accomplish more in 1 year than they actually
Yeah.
can, and less in 10 years than they could. Something along, that's misquoted, but basically the understanding is if you broke down 10 years, you'd really be able to accomplish more. And I think I would, if I was giving my advice, I think I'd have myself focus on, um, like kind of more of the tried and true ways of
Mm.
continuing to have strong growth along the way. And for me, that strong growth is connections within the community. Number one, I don't think I would have gotten, you know, asking for referrals, really focusing on how to cultivate referrals, because I think I personally had a lot of shiny object syndrome
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
chasing new ways of like gathering and getting clients. And when you look at how many new clients we've received and worked with over a 10-year span, it's huge. And it's like if I could have worked a little bit smarter
Yeah.
to retain and cultivate and slowly like build a more educated and uh, stronger foundation with each relationship, I'd be working a little differently now. And I think I'm doing that now. Like I'm really looking at, how do we work with people for a long period of time
Mm.
together in this way. And I think my advice would have been to like stick to the tried and true principles and look to create more community in my practice. And then I think I would have been a little less distracted over the years, because things have changed so much. Like
Yeah.
Facebook was barely being used when I opened my practice and when you opened your practice. And now it's like, how many digital opportunities are there to communicate with people? But as working in the healing work now, nothing replaces human to human contact,
Right.
experience, touch points. I even think that's why I like the podcast so much, because it allows
Yeah.
you and I to really develop understanding and reflection about our own healing journey and the journey of those that we work with. So maybe I would have also said start podcasting earlier.
Yeah.
Along the way.
Yeah. One thing I enjoy, just a little tangent about the podcasting, is how much it helps me to formulate my thoughts.
Mhm.
And then, the way that we express, because like when we do these episodes, we plan them a bit. Like we'll to say we plan them, like we'll pick a
Yeah.
topic that we're both excited to talk about.
Yeah.
And then we kind of jump in.
Mhm.
So then we're like exploring this topic together, and there's many different directions we can go. And for me, it's like building these muscles of being more like unscripted, and being able to talk on the fly, and try to do that in the best way, communicate in the best way possible.
Mhm.
Which before it was kind of easy for me to get tripped up at
Yeah.
certain times.
Yeah. Another the second big piece that I feel like came about from this question is I just started having a coverage person in my office, and he's a really fantastic gentleman. He's like, I think he's early 70s. He does not look early 70s. Joe D'Onofrio. Do you know who Joe D'Onofrio
Yeah.
was? The
Yeah.
guy who ran like the box on the wall practice in New Jersey for years.
Yeah.
That was his chiropractor.
Wow.
Yeah, he went to Sherman. He was good friends with Arnaud Brunier. He practiced toughness. He practiced
Wow.
all these different techniques and ended up as a predominantly network practitioner with his wife. And he started working with me, and he knows a lot of upper cervical. So it was very easy for him to like just get a little bit of teaching from me and be able to do the work quite well. And when he was observing me and I'm talking to my clients, he saw many people like come in and they would tell me about a problem they were going through, like their pain or, their arthritis in their knees. And
Yeah.
they take Advil every day at lunch or something like this. And he's like, you're not trying to correct all of their problems. And I was like, no, I'm like, that person's been with me for 10 years and they're coming to me for a reason that I'm not fully aware of. But his perception was that the people were coming there to, if somebody's telling you something like, oh yeah, I take Advil every day for my knees because I have knee arthritis and this and that. Like he was in lifetime witnessing this person having a long-term relationship with me. They were getting what they felt they needed. And yet I wasn't solving every one of their problems.
Yeah.
And it was very freeing for me. And I was like, wow, many people as practitioners carry this around where they try to fix everything. And I think kind of what you said is, I don't think I was really big on trying to be all things to everyone early in chiropractic and just do what I did well and love people. And they end up kind of staying because they're being cared for in a way that we don't always understand. Right.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know why that person necessarily keeps seeing me once a month for like 10 years.
Right. Right. Yeah, my experience was different. Like for me, it was very. I had done a lot of work in functional neurology, and it was very much like kind of symptom focused. And like my brain, like. So just a quick apology. We're going to need to edit this because we had probably the worst sound glitch we've ever had during this podcast. So now I have these giant headphones on that I typically wear to the airport for noise cancellation.
Awesome. I still want to know what happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Some crazy glitch with the sound. But to dive back to where we were before, for me, I was very focused on symptoms because I had a really big background more in kind of functional neurology, more like functional medicine. And my brain likes solving complex problems. So I would really, I like the challenge of solving puzzles that way. But the longer that I've worked as a chiropractor, I've taken the approach more like what you have, as far as like, we're here to do kind of a specific thing to bring the system into balance. And then if you can sustain that balance long term, that person's just going to have such a higher chance of thriving. And there are these other practitioners who can take care of the other parts.
Yeah.
So it's taken me quite a bit to really kind of shift more to that.
Yeah.
But the more I've done that, the more fulfilled I've been in practice.
Yeah, I almost enjoy the client that has, this is kind of sidebar, but that has multiple things going on, and not for any reason. Then there's almost more opportunity for change when that's really occurring, because multiple symptoms and multiple conditions oftentimes is a very more obvious expression of nervous system dysfunction, right?
Yeah.
And it gives some opportunity for the like tide to rise and some of those things to just very much dissolve. And oftentimes they will all get better in a very unique kind of way, meaning the one that maybe somebody desired the most to change is like the last one to go.
Yeah.
And sometimes like all three of the four aspects of that person will get massively better. And then the tolerance for a slightly off one area that was slightly off is kind of okay. And then they find new ways to manage that. So chiropractic's really a great differentiator, and it helps bring awareness. I've noticed this over the years is people have greater awareness about what chiropractic's actually doing for them while they utilize chiropractic, right? So it's like, I don't actually know fully the changes that person is experiencing inside because I'll never be them. I can manage effects, I can manage data, but I can't fully understand internally why a person chooses to do this on a regular basis. And that through experience. So it's like those clients, I'm not even judging them. They don't, not everyone is supposed to be like us, right? And I think chiropractors evangelize like the vitalistic philosophy, and they miss the point that like people just utilize this for very many different reasons along the way, and they're not all going to be the same, nor should they be.
Yeah. That brings up a great point, which is something that took me a long time to learn. And it actually really solidified doing the energy healing. There's a specific case I was talking about with Sovereign. It's just Miss Dave, a person just in a really severe, difficult situation. And what we were talking about was time and healing. And basically, being able to keep somebody in a positive container energetically, but also in terms of chiropractically being able to make sure their system's balanced. And the benefit of doing that, okay, like if you have somebody in a balanced, healthy nervous system state, and you're able to keep them there for 5 years, the effects that's going to have on their life are absolutely massive. And same thing with the energy. If we can keep somebody in a positive, balanced energy state where there's lots of beautiful energy around, negative energy is not around, and we can do that for a long period of time, you're going to see some incredible changes happen with that person. And it allows the opportunity for the really deep stuff that may be deeply rooted, whether it's more significant physical illnesses or more significant energetic issues, to really come out and get fixed.
Yeah. Most things aren't done long enough or strong enough to get the result that we're looking for. And, even as practitioners, it's like, when you were saying that, I was like, oh, well, anybody that gives me 6 months, let's say chiropractically, is going to be drastically different. But if somebody gave you 5 years, it would be even a bigger deal. And not like we're ever asking for that, but people get there on their own where they're utilizing this thing over time. And you and I can probably say we've been under care for forever. And within that first year of being under regular care, I noticed so many profound things. Like I used to have asthma. I didn't need an inhaler. I used to get every seasonal allergies. I wasn't getting seasonal allergies. Now that's like not that big of a deal because I haven't had them for 20 years, right? Like I'm not, so it's not at the forefront of my mind. So then it's like, well, what is this doing for me? And in some degree, I have to say, well, it's helping keep my body in the state of adaptation. Okay, good. That's a theory. But then there are these little subtle nuances that arrive years down the line that I can differentiate because I've lived all the experience up to that point. Right. And that's the beauty of having greater awareness in your own health and healing, because then now we might go to something else because we've seen the effects of chiropractic bringing forth awareness to make a dietary change or to make a movement change or to make a meditation or not do so much because of all of that. And you can't get there without the totality of the lessons over time. So, some of this advice that we're giving is, I think it would be like, you're going to have so many new levels of understanding that don't get stuck for too long on any one thing. Make decisions efficiently, quickly, say no to more things, give yourself more rest and time. So in the end, you have more energy to do the things you love. Like those are kind of the lessons that I feel like have come out of all of this. And, this is my beef with coaches, and people want to teach everyone how to skip steps. And it's like, that doesn't promote learning. That doesn't actually promote healing. When you skip steps, you ignore symptoms, you don't actually get to the places that you think you're going to get. So I think that's why the long-term understanding of chiropractic can be so profound and beneficial. And also with energy healing, you've like inspired me to like really be honest with people and be like, if you commit to doing some of this over a year, you're going to be so different.
Yeah.
And you're going to just not even know what to say to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. On that note with chiropractic too, like if one of the things we do now, it's funny you said 6 months, because it's like, that's what we do as far as our chiropractic plans. Typically they're 6 months for corrective plans.
Yeah.
Because of how much healing somebody will actually go through if you're able to hold them in that container long term.
Mm-hmm.
And with energy healing too, it's really the same thing for clients. It's like, it doesn't require the same frequency as chiropractic by any means.
No.
But it's like, okay, if you're doing something once a quarter, that's great. We're going to make so much progress. But it's nice to be in this container of having even periodic work done, just because it keeps the energy flowing optimally long enough for somebody to have really amazing changes.
Yeah. 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 And a lot of them, even if I always say this to people, like when I do a life activation with somebody, and that's, that's the probably the healing modality we promote is like the first one to do.
Yeah.
I always have people like mark the date that they do that. And I'm like, listen, if you can check in with me, I'm going to check in with you probably a week after, a month after, and periodically down the line. I was like, but a great practice for yourself would be check in with yourself a week and check in what's different, what's coming up, what's showing up, then a month, then a quarter, then a half a year.
Yeah.
And then if you really are honest with yourself and you look at a year from that date and assess where you were, and then take inventory of where you are in that moment a year later, you're going to be surprised the progress that you've made and the speed at which you have kind of turned it up a notch. And most people, if they have the wherewithal, even without doing anything else, will be rather surprised with what they've gone through, what they've overcome, who they've become, and what they've gotten rid of in their life. And there's usually those questions can be answered in a very different way. But like you said, if they choose to do something quarterly, the speed at which understanding and growth comes is much greater.
Yeah.
Much greater.
Yeah. I think that there's an element towards it, at least with the energy healing, where it's kind of like keeping somebody going in line with their true north.
Mm-hmm.
And because people are they're moving, like the universe is moving, the person's moving. So you have these two moving objects. And if you can get it just so it's moving in the best direction for that person, there's going to be a little bit of course correction that's needed at different times, which the energy work it naturally does when you're doing the sessions. It's correcting those imbalances. Yeah. So I think periodic is really where people can thrive, but you can do it at a way that, if you can't do every quarter, do every 6 months or whatever, but be able to see how things are, what it looks like when that container is held for a period of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, even like with the energy work, a lot of times we encourage people to just take a photo of themselves before they do some of this stuff, because people have a glow to them, and we're more sensitive to the glow. People are much more attuned to, wow, you look different. Like, I'm sure you experience this chiropractically. My staff loves to watch and observe people's whole like demeanor when they come back from their first adjustment, regardless of what their symptoms were or anything. Like, people carry themselves differently. They hold themselves differently. They look drastically different. And then when they know that they've done some healing work or they got life activation, they love to see like how that shows up, how that expresses in the glow. And there is a glow to people, I even know for myself, with my own healing, most of my life, I hated looking at a photo of myself. I didn't want to hear my words. I didn't want to look at my own picture. And now it's like half the time I'm actually feeling the opposite way. I like the way I look better. I like the way I sound even better than before. Listening to yourself on a podcast, that's something I would have never done and gone back through. And sometimes I do it and I'm like, wow, you know what? I appreciate what I said or how I sounded. And so much of that's healing, right? I was like rejecting myself for years. And then all of a sudden you start to bring more of this awareness and light into your life. And then you're like, wow, I like what's happening. I like what I'm seeing. I like what I'm saying. I like what I'm experiencing much better. And people can see it. And, the more we work with people and we watch this transformation happen for people over and over again, it becomes predictable, and others can see it too. I'm sure your staff can see it with people all the time. And it's very rewarding to see people light up and change right before our very eyes.
It is. It's so funny. Like, I think one of the things early in practice is there may have been some challenging clients where it was more like personality challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the people that were a little bit kind of grittier or just more difficult to work with.
Yeah.
And on the same conversation, like as you take care of somebody for a long period of time, like they're getting better.
Mm-hmm.
And even those like more tougher personality characteristics are like softening, and you can really appreciate the quirkiness behind the person.
Yeah.
And myself too, it's like I really don't get triggered by people in the same way that I did before. It's just a much deeper understanding of myself and people as a whole. So it's like if somebody's challenging, like I'm still able to love them in that moment, and it doesn't really affect me.
Yeah.
And it's just it's made practice a lot more fun, because even what used to be like the most difficult people, like I'm excited to see them now.
Yeah. And that's sometimes they're the best people. And I'm sure you experience it less, and I take less offense, right? We had this guy start recently. He's an older gentleman, and he worked in like a freezer for years, and like he couldn't feel his feet, and he's had neck issues forever, and he had a spinal surgery, and he's kind of rough, and he's like 73, and he got started under care, and he comes in the second visit. And I mean, he's upright and different. But the funniest thing is he tells my staff, his name's Robert, and he comes in and he goes, "You guys call me Bobby."
Like, I love it. Yeah.
Second time he comes in, he goes, "You guys don't have, Robert's so formal." But we're calling him Robert like the first 2-3 visits. And then all of a sudden he's like, "I'm not Robert. You guys call me Bobby around here. I'm Bobby." And I'm like, that just is such a different like tonality. So now we have Bobby in the office, and you can tell he's just like, I was like, "Oh yeah, how's the next stuff?" And he's like, "I don't know, I have to get back to you." But I'm like, it's not even on your mind anymore.
Yeah.
So now you can be Bobby.
Oh, those moments are so special. And sometimes people need to, like, they feel like they need to have a guard up.
Yeah.
And I think one of the nice things with chiropractic is that we're able to see people on a regular basis. And even with the energy healing, and one of the benefits of this podcast too, is that we really get to, like, people get to see who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that helps like people's guards to go down. So it's like they can just be themselves. Like they just know that we're not out to get them or whatever. Like we're here to help. And there's not that authenticity that can come because of the people getting to know you on a deeper level over a longer period of time.
I feel like part of my purpose is like to demystify some of this. Like I always got into chiropractic, and chiropractic is like, we could probably do an episode on this. It's like the most infighting profession that ever existed. Is like you just see people get so mad, and it's like to even have another business adventure that's like outside of the realm is like people get so mad about that. Like if you have interest in other ways and you want to express, chiropractors are like get so bent out of shape about everything. I love to watch how we just kind of get crazy with each other, but the point of I almost forget where I'm going with this, but the point is like over that time, it's like you stop worrying about what all the chiropractors think when you've helped enough people, and you're like, because you see the breadth and depth across the board. So therefore you don't have to put it in this box of what it's supposed to be or what it is or what it isn't. And I think that's like the beauty of what chiropractic holds, is the fact that, you don't have to hold it so tight of what it's going to do with everyone. And that, through experience of helping the people over the time, really helps it unfold. And that's what makes it so beautiful. The essence of it, it just unfolds.
Yeah. And it's this demystifying process. I really hope that as the world changes, like we get a better understanding of healthcare as far as this, of being in balance. Like, like that conversation with Founder Goodney and what we're talking about here. If we can keep a system in balance, you're gonna be healthy, and the role that chiropractic plays for that. Because it would just like our whole Western medical system has really been symptom focused for so long. And what we've been doing is really outside one of the challenges that we have is that we may view certain things a certain way, but people have been grown up in a certain way of thinking where they've, pharmaceutical advertising and they haven't thought about a healthy system being in balance before. The whole system hasn't really worked with that. It hasn't been the focus. So if we can actually get healthcare to start like having that as a focus, it'll be beautiful.
That's a great point, because there's like sometimes with I don't want to put this as like an obsolete exact, but sometimes in the Western healthcare system, if you want to call that more traditional medicine, sometimes we go from like 0 to 60, right? It's like, and I saw this with like Lauren, Lauren was just, my wife was actually hospitalized with pneumonia, and she's also pregnant. So it's like she went to urgent care, and the levels of like, she went to urgent care, they tested her for flu and COVID, and they were like, you don't have that. So it's a virus. So go home and take care of it. And just do what you would do for a virus. Great. Well, 2 days go by, then she calls the OB and she's like expressing to them, I'm really sick. I really can't get out of bed. And they're like, well, and she's like, I'm starting to get a fever. And they're like, well, you could take some Tylenol and you can do some rest. And then it just like spirals into in the chest. And then finally we end up at the urgent care again. And then we're in the hospital. Then we're at the ICU. So it was like, the gradients went from like, let's not treat to like, bam, we got to treat hardcore to turn this whole thing around. And sometimes like, I think our healthcare system, and in many ways, when we're utilizing all aspects, there's a more natural gradient that allows people to have more balance, right? You don't just have to hit the extreme, because there is a place for all of that. Without a doubt, there's 100% a life-saving place that was needed. And also during times, the intervention can be a little less severe to help bring that balance into play. And I think that's what a system that works together can actually accomplish and achieve. And not to say it's like right or wrong. It's like sometimes necessary, sometimes less necessary than other means. So I love that word of balance, because then everyone has a place and role.
Yeah. And it's just helping to restore that balance and to do that long term. And it's just such a different question too of people. It's like, okay, like, how are you doing? Are you in balance versus, are you sick? Because somebody might have a lot going on. They might not identify as sick because they don't have an intense symptom.
Yeah.
But
and even in that hospital experience, like, you want to know, one of the things that's very much lacking is human touch, right? And so Lauren had a lot of oxygen related issues. When you have pneumonia, it's like she couldn't pull much oxygen in. So she was on oxygen. And every time I gave her a massage, like the upper part of her shoulders, her lungs, arnica massage, her oxygen levels would immediately go up 4 points right away. She'd go out of this like it's too low. Right away, pop right up, and it would stay up. Both times we did this back-to-back days. Both times it went up by about 4 points into the normal, from like 91 up to 95, 96 O2 stats. And then it would stay there. And it was like, human touch is not occurring as part of the like the coddling through the illness. It is an important part. And it's not like but you just realize there's all of this understanding of what we know, and healing definitely can come together. And I think we're seeing that more and more. And I'm not sure exactly how we got here on this episode, but it's very important from like what Founder Goodney was talking about, and just having this balanced understanding of the necessity and the use of all modalities. I think
Yeah.
going back to that question of what would you tell your younger self, it's like I remember fighting everybody else's methods, like the PT and the nutritionist or the massage. It's like I wanted to solve everyone's problem through chiropractic, and yet though I have a very significant role, is everything has a place to really help an individual.
Yeah. I think that's a much more balanced view, right? but that I also did the very same thing, and I didn't have that balanced perspective.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think every practitioner, like at least in in chiropractic and medicine and physical therapy, like there is a level of indoctrination that kind of goes with the schooling.
Yeah.
Like you're just so in this bubble for so long, and it really affects how your mind thinks.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways it's really good, in some ways that are negative.
Yep.
And I think one of the negative ways is that it puts you through this lens of like, you're seeing chiropractic like is the be all end all, or like the solution to everybody's different problems, like we were talking about.
Yeah. And it's like at the end of the day, that person's the solution, right?
Yeah.
The person, all healing is self-healing, right?
Right.
That's why I was drawn to chiropractic. That's why I was drawn to the mysteries, because the understanding is like you are the true healer. So that's a good reminder at any point along the way, as far as like what advice should I give to my younger self, is like always remember that the person is the healer, right? And that all healing is self-healing. And when we can remember that, it really frees us up. It's a very empowering message for people to realize, like, and yet we also need each other. And it's like, I saw Lauren self-healing all week, and it's like, but still so many people helped her. So many people instilled confidence. Just some touch helped. Prayer helped. And Sophic Reiki helped. Distance healing helped. The nurses helped. The medicine, everything helped.
Yeah.
And she integrated it and orchestrated her own healing. And many different aspects were necessary. So I think the older that I get and the wiser I get, the more I can have some grace for the practitioners who aren't me, and the methods of healing who aren't my own. And I think that's going to be the evolution, is like, there's never been, there's becoming more respect amongst practitioners as well. And I think that's why one of the motivations for this podcast is to kind of bridge some of those gaps.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I fully agree. And I, hope one day, like a beautiful vision I was getting during this episode is like having a hospital, but having one of the focuses being people in balance. Like it would smell totally different. The lights would be different. Like the what the people wore would be different. The whole experience of that.
Yeah.
Like if it would be a completely different experience.
Yeah. It was kind of a beautiful reminder, just being through that experience the last week. She went through a lot, but like, it does give you a reflection, is like, oh, there's really good people out there in healthcare, really working hard to help people. And the environment could just be a little bit more supportive of healing of the whole person and honoring of the whole person. Because it can be kind of lonely. And during COVID times, it got even lonelier for people. So I love this idea of balance going forward. I feel like that's going to be a little bit of a theme this year, and for the self and for just the understanding of working with people in general. So I think we gave a lot of advice to our younger selves today, and also maybe for our future selves to be more productive.
Yeah, it was such a great episode. So please let us share with us your thoughts. We'll look forward to speaking with you next week. And thank you for taking the time to listen.
Awesome. Have a great week, and we will speak with you soon.